The video starts with what looks like a strange set of symbols, but keep in mind we're also celebrating the 400th anniversary of the first use of the telescope by Galileo. In the wintertime of 1610, he was looking at the planet and the arms of the rings sitting out on either side, but his telescope was so crude that he picked this out to be three separate bodies. It took 50 years before Christian Huygens realized that what you were looking at was a central sphere like a good planet ought to be, but it had this magnificent, majestic ring system around it. This is one of those mosaics taken from a great distance, and then we piece together the various images. These are all natural, real colors. We just combined three separate color images in order to get this. This, I think, is a good illustration of why, again, you want to do space exploration. You get up close, you see things in much greater detail, but you can also see perspectives that you aren't able to see from the Earth. Saturn only moves back and forth across the sky by 6 degrees, so you don't see very much around the sides of anything. You don't see the polar regions. Now we have a chance to view all that and understand the three-dimensional structure of the system. Here we're looking at the sun is just behind the planet at about 7 o'clock, peeking over the limb there. You see the upper atmosphere illuminated. It's an unusual image because what you're looking at is the rings splayed out on either side of the planet, but then some of the sunlight comes and strikes this side of the ring and reflects back into the shadowed planet and illuminates what should be the dark planet. And then it reflects back out to the camera and passes through the rings in order to reach the cameras. And so you see the ring both in illumination but also in silhouette simultaneously, and your eye sort of goes like that. So there's science in this, but it's also there's mystery, and it's otherworldly. I mean, it really is out of this world. And as the National Geographic said, it's Saturn as we've never seen it before. The thin line is the very thin ring system. In fact, if it were shown in true thickness, you wouldn't even be able to see it. We're catching it at a little bit of an edge. We know that the system is made up of lots of particles. And so these things you might think would just, orbit in random directions around the planet. But of course, if you've got enough of them, then they start to run into one another. And as they run into one another, they tend to flatten down into one plane, and they lose energy, but they've got to continue to carry this angular momentum in a physical sense. And so the combination of losing energy and saving angular momentum means that the system flattens and spreads as wide as it can possibly spread. This has gone a long way here, so that we've gotten a system down to being just 30 feet thick, even though it extends for several 100,000 miles. It's sort of like if you were to take a sheet of tissue paper and spread it across a football field, say, and then take 1,000 slices of it. It's about that thickness. In this image, we're seeing the main expanse of the rings, and within that are two black lines. Sitting inside of each of those is a moonlet, and the gaps are in fact created by these moons pushing aside the ring. The bigger moon makes a bigger hole. The little moon on the outside makes this little narrow gap. In this image, you see the rings pass in front of the satellite Titan. In the background here, the outer edge of the ring system, you see there's a narrow thread on the top and the bottom. That's the F ring, which encompasses the entire ring system. One would not have expected to see anything so narrow, and we now know it has two little moons on either side that are pushing the particles together and keeping them in that narrow thread. This ring had been thought to be made up of very small ice particles, but now we see embedded within the core there are big chunks of material. And we've started calling them, because they come and go, we call them cats. These are two little moons, the little moons that surround this F ring, and they're interesting bodies in their own right. The moon you see in the background here looks bland. The reason it looks bland is it's got an incredibly dense atmosphere. It's the moon Titan. very difficult to observe from the ground because of the opacity of the atmosphere. But from spacecraft, we're able to carry aboard certain filters that allow us to look through that haze. So we now have a reasonably good idea of what Titan is like, and it's a very, very interesting place. That's the upper atmosphere of Titan, and it's layered and made out of various organic molecules. These are some of the images that were taken by the Huygens probe camera. We wanted to be able to look through that haze and see whether or not we would see things like lakes. We've in fact found lakes in the North Polar region. We're quite certain they're ethane and methane lakes, and they're of substantial size. They're sizes of the Great Lakes here on Earth. So this is a magnificent image and just pretty amazing science. Here's a little moon, Enceladus, and when we got there, we found that this was at the core of a faint ring system looking back toward the sun over the limb of this satellite. We see this material spewing out. So we've got some heating mechanism that's driving geysers. And those geysers come right out of those blue cracks in the South Polar region. Again, an incredible place. Who would have predicted something like this? And you got to go there to see it. I think there are really close connections between art and science. You know, in both cases, you need to be aware of what's happened in the past. You need to have some understanding of what previous accomplishments have been, and you build on those experiences. But you're also trying to give some sense of your view of the world. And mine maybe is a mechanistic, but it's an understandable world. But I am still trying to explore myself and explore the world around me. When I look at these spacecraft images, I have lots of different responses. They are remarkably beautiful to me. They're graphically beautiful. You've got very crisp lines, you've got perfect spheres and planes, and they're just beautiful, beautiful things. And you realize this place is 10 times as far from the sun as the Earth is. And to people of the generations before us, these were little specks of light. And look what we're seeing. If you ask a third grade class, draw something from space, 98% of them are going to be planets with rings. They're all Saturn because they're beautiful. And they're not only beautiful, but they say something about the way the processes that went on back when the solar system was put together. So we can look at these processes, the processes out of which the solar system was born in real life. And having images like this are a great aid in us understanding the very complex dynamics. Space is not only a metaphor for discovery, but also for exploration and for the future. And that's been important in the fabric of our society. And the space program is what we have left. I mean, America was all about the frontier. Well, the frontier right now is out there. These images allow us a chance to really tell our science story. And I think it's important to convince the general public that the space program is important. It gives us a perspective on who we are as a species. It gives us a chance to teach some science and to excite some young students and hopefully make the world a better place when we're gone.